Hello and welcome to Bad Boy Cinema. I'm your host, Rick Reel, and today we will be discussing Sonic the Hedgehog 3, released in 2024, directed by Jeff F. Jeff F., that's funny, starring Ben Schwartz and a bunch of other people. Keanu Reeves as the Shadow the Hedgehog, the kind of mirror version of Sonic. So, going into this movie, right, I've seen the other two Sonic the Hedgehog films, and I am a fan. I wouldn't say I'm a fanboy of like the Sonic games, but I'm a fan. I like Sonic, and I'm a fan of Sonic Adventure 2 for, Dreamcast, GameCube, whatever. Well, the GameCube version, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, I'm a fan of the games, and I'm a fan of the game that this is specifically, trying to represent the adaptation, right? So this is an adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2, the game, but Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the film. Anyway, as a fan, not a fanboy, but as a fan, there's parts of the movie that I was hyped for that was specific to me, right, or specific to like somebody who's a fan of that game. There's a lot of references and little tips of the hat, as we discuss on the show, tips of the hat to the game, and obviously the plot is really heavily influenced by it. And before I get too much into the weeds with like kind of the stuff I would change and the pros and cons, right? I'll say I had fun with it. It's a fun movie. It's a fun kids movie, right? And I think emphasis should be put on it being a kids movie. I think both my opinion and the opinion of the movie going, public and my colleagues as other critics, it's the best of this trilogy. And I think the Sonic the Hedgehog trilogy for video game adaptations go, and maybe just kind of as kids movies go, pretty solid, right? Like they're pretty good movies. I would rewatch this again over the Mario film. You know what I mean? I probably would like this more than the upcoming Minecraft movie releasing in 2025. It's pretty good. It's for a kids movie. It's pretty fun. And it's a pretty, I'm not gonna say a faithful adaptation, but for like adapting a game plot into a movie, that is, Sonic Adventure 2, right? As a game, it has a hero mode and then like the dark mode. So two different story paths that converge into a final path at the end, right? And it's a game, and it's a game from 2001. So, the storytelling like is harder to adapt than I think the other two movies in this franchise are adapting kind of the 2D, Sonic 1 through 3. And, those are easier, I think, to adapt in the sense that you can kind of do whatever you want. But Sonic Adventure 2 has like a very distinct plot. It is a game with a story more than like, the other Sonic games. Or at least the 2D ones. And so it's a little tricky to, come up with something that I think makes sense, and works as both a good film, a good kid movie, and then also as a good adaptation of the game. And so in that sense, trying to thread that needle through all three of those, I think this movie did a pretty good job. And I think the shadow stuff in the film is pretty good. I think, the main cast of animal friends, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, I think their characterization's pretty good in this one compared to the previous films. But those are all positives, and I'm going to get into kind of my critiques and kind of my more, less positive thoughts after this. And I don't want to spoil the film or spoil a game that's over 20 years old. But if you're a fan of Sonic Adventure 2, or you have a kid or you just enjoy kids movies, I can give Sonic the Hedgehog 3 a strong recommendation. It's pretty fun, and silly. It's a good time. So with that said, let's get kind of into the more spoiler stuff, right? And I guess the way to talk about the movie is to talk kind of not beat by beat, but just sort of uh, there's some things I would change, right? And I think some things I would do are basically just like I kind of want to make this more like the video game, um, because I was mad that it wasn't more like the story. So I have to kind of talk about the beats of the game and the beats of the movie kind of simultaneously and switch between them. So I apologize for that. That kind of probably sucks, but I think it's important for discussing this film. I also would like to point out that, like, I saw this, I guess, opening weekend. It's earned like 63.4 million in the box office opening weekend with on a budget of 122. So that's pretty good. With a 110-minute runtime, it's a little shy of 2 hours, and I think, frankly, we talk about pacing on this show. Well, I talk about pacing on this show at this point, and it's weird. It's a film that kind of goes through beats really fast and then like throws the brakes on in the middle. Um, so the film opens up with you see Shadow in a gun base prison island, like in the game. A little tip of the hat to that level, uh, prison island. And Shadow's been busted out by what looks to be Eggman, but we'll get to that. And he just beats up a bunch of dudes and leaves, and then that's how the film opens up. And then it cuts to Sonic, and he's hanging out with Tom and Maddie, his human. I'm not gonna say parents, but like kind of parents, and as well as Tails and Knuckles, and they're all hanging out having fun. And it's Sonic's anniversary of living on Earth, so they're throwing a party, and then the government shows up, Gun shows up and says, hey, there's something happening in Tokyo, can you deal with it? And very different already from the game, right? So in the game, Sonic is mistaken, like Shadow's going on a rampage doing stuff, and people think it's Sonic, so it's like a mistaken identity thing. And that's how the game opens, at least on the Sonic, the hero story arc. And I kind of like that more. It feels very rushed into getting Sonic and Shadow to meet, and they don't really do anything with a mistaken identity sort of story. I think you could have easily done the same thing where maybe worldwide Shadow is causing mischief, getting special items to do something to activate the arc or the eclipse cannon or whatever, doing special stuff to activate a thing, right? And around the world, and then so they think they just see a hedgehog doing that, and they're like, well, there's only one hedgehog, so they go and get they track down Sonic and detain him. And you could do City Escape, right? You could have done City Escape. You could have had the song. It would have been sick. They could have done that, and they didn't, and I think that's a failure. But Sonic and Tails and Knuckles, which gotta say, I think Tails is a lot better in this movie. He's kind of like a little wimp in the second film, and now he feels more like Tails from the games. He also has a little backpack on all the time, and I like it. Knuckles is fine. He's again, I think he's a little less irritating than the previous movie. I didn't see the Knuckles spin-off show. It does not seem to be necessary that you do to watch this, based on my experience. I didn't really miss any beats with that. But anyway, so they go to Tokyo, they kind of fuck around. Shadow's there. He beats the crap out of him because Shadow's super cool. I said this earlier, but Shadow is the best part of the movie. And like if they had to get a celebrity to voice him, right? Like, I think they should have gotten, with all this stuff, I think they should just have regular people, like regular voice actors, voice these characters, like they did with Tails. But they had Keanu Reeves voice Shadow, but I think Keanu did a good job. And, if you're going to have a celebrity for Shadow, I think Keanu is actually a pretty decent pick. You have to have a celebrity. And I think there's a lot of care to most of the Shadow stuff in the movie. Jeff F. He worked on the CGI, movie stuff for Shadow the Hedgehog the game, so I think he has a special place in his heart for that. And I think there's a lot more care with Shadow in this than really any of the other plot points, and it's like apparent in almost like kind of a bad way. You know what I mean? Like Shadow's on screen, you're like, yeah, this is cool and makes sense, and there's stuff going on, and then it like cuts to the humans or like Eggman, and you're like, oh, this is just take me back to the compelling. Like again, I'm a Shadow fan. Like, and I think this movie vindicates like people who think Shadow is cool. For a while, Shadow was like too edgy to be cool, but I think everyone's like, actually Shadow the Hedgehog might be like one of the coolest things in the world. So yeah, Shadow the Hedgehog's cool. Anyway, so he beats up Sonic and the gang, and then they kind of regroup. They're pursued by like rogue egg bots, and then the Eggman assistant shows up and says, hey man, those aren't actually ours, so what's going on? There's like a very brief team up with Eggman. They go to the base where Shadow was hanging out as not a kid, but 50 years ago, because he was in the stasis tube, right? So another change from the game, Shadow was in the space station, the space colony arc or whatever it was called, the whole time. Whereas here he was living on Earth and crashed onto Earth in a meteorite and was kind of experimented on, and they didn't have it in Earth, which is, I think, fine. But what's not fine is that in the game, Shadow. So important. Story. Shadow has a relationship with this girl, Maria, who is the granddaughter of Gerald Robotnik, who is Eggman's grandfather. So Eggman and Maria are cousins, which doesn't really matter in both the game or the movie. Like the genealogy, like, doesn't come into play. Eggman doesn't care. And I think the way that Eggman is played in the first two movies of this by Jim Carrey, because this was JC month, right? We talked about doing JC month, so this is my tip of the hat to JC month. That idea is reviewing Sonic the Hedgehog 3, because I've been busy with life, and I haven't had time to do the podcast, but I've got time now, so we're doing Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Anyway, it's fine. But the way he's portrayed in the first two movies, I think, is pretty good, because Eggman in those games isn't much of a character, and he's kind of cartoony and goofy, and I think Jim Carrey's fine. I'm not a huge Jim Carrey fan. And this movie was particularly rough for me because Jim Carrey is playing two different characters. And as a student of the Sonic Adventure 2 storyline, Eggman is not alive at the same time. Well, I mean, I guess he is as a child, but Eggman in the present is a character, and then Gerald Robotnik is a character who had died in the past because he's old and also was executed by the government. Because in the game, Shadow and Maria and Gerald Robotnik are on the space station, and the government like seizes control of it. They lock up Shadow and they kill off Maria, and then execute Gerald Robotnik. And which is crazy for a game, right? Like, for a game that is ostensibly targeted towards kids, there's like a lot of heavy stuff in it, and they definitely tone it down a little bit for the movie. So Maria is killed in an explosion instead of directly shot at, and Gerald Robotnik is alive the whole time somehow, which makes no sense. And it's they explain it. There's like a line that explains why he's like alive, and they A, didn't kill him, and B, why he's like not in prison. But it doesn't feel great, and the result of it is there's a lot of this weird, like, not like grandfather grandson bonding between Jim Carrey and Jim Carrey, and it's like a lot of winking at the camera. They're like, there's two Jim Carreys right now, and it's as like, if you don't find Ace Ventura funny, you know what I mean? Like, it's double that. It's double that unfunny, and boy, does it really take away from some parts of the movie in a way that's exhausting. But basically, Eggman was teaming up with Sonic and friends to figure out what's going on. Finds out, Gerald, his grandfather's responsible, immediately switches sides, is working with Shadow, right? So obviously in the game, Gerald's not alive at all. And Shadow's motivations were changed. Shadow was like kind of brainwashed by Gerald Robotnik in the game to believe Maria wanted to believe a child wanted to like kill off all the humans. Which no. you know, uh that was her final wish. It's funny though that misinterpreting a blonde woman's final will is like a thing in games, right? Shout out to Metal Gear Solid, the franchise, for misinterpreting the boss's will. Shadow is brainwashed to misinterpret Maria's will, which is a lot less compelling. Whereas in the movie, which I think is good, is that Shadow has been thinking about his revenge for 50 years in a stasis pod, and he's just mad. You know, Shadow's also like, I think he has more agency because he's doing it out of his own free will rather than being brainwashed, and that's great. But there's something to be said about how in the game, like Eggman finds out about he takes over the Ark and uses it as a weapon with like he's like, I got this cool weapon, I'm gonna use it, and he does that of his own free will. So Eggman in this movie is like kind of a terrible loser for like 95% of it. And, it's grating. It's grating. Jim Carrey's grating. I find all the Eggman stuff really annoying and not charming at all. And I think, if you're a kid or, like a Gen X elder millennial parent who's taking your kid, no, elder millennials have kids that are old enough to see this. So, yeah, elder millennials probably find Jim Carrey funny, which is why he's in it. So maybe they think it's funny. Maybe the elder millennials reviewing this movie and have kids who are seeing this movie are really in love with Jim Carrey, and they think two Jim Carreys is great. And oh my God, this is such a return to their childhood. But I'm a young millennial, and so I think it sucks. And yeah, it's kind of annoying. Maybe they leave. We all go to London because that's where the big government base is. The gun base is. And they go in the gun base, and it's a stupid heist thing that isn't funny and largely sucks. Like at this part of the movie, like the pacing has been really breakneck, right? Like I've been explaining a lot of points very quickly, and then this part just kind of slows everything down. There's a lot of dumb comedy that isn't funny. I would edit this part out entirely. I would find a way to just have them go to a space station that already exists, have them put in space and keep that stuff the same. I think would be fine. They don't have to live on Earth because they're like already at like Sonic's able to see that Shadow is like not a total asshole like in the middle of the movie, whereas that's not really a thing that happens until the very end of the game. So that's another thing. It's again, I sympathize because a lot of Shadow's character development is also in the game is done through Amy and Rouge. Kind of like they kind of are foils for Shadow in his relationship with Maria, and because they're the only women, right? Because sexism, I guess. And I think that their existence and presence in the story kind of allows Shadow to sort of have his change of heart, and it takes him a minute, but it feels earned, which isn't the case here, and because Amy and Rouge don't exist in the movie. So they can't do that. So I get why they find his kind of like evidence of being friends with Maria kind of early in the film relative to the story in the game. But yeah, I don't know. Like basically, if they try to do it with the have Amy and or Rouge in the game, I'd be like, ugh, this is annoying. If they had like Maddie do it, I would be annoyed because I'm like, ugh, the real humans are annoying. And yeah, so like I'd complain no matter what, but I do sympathize with having to make that decision because there's people like me who are going to be annoyed no matter what they did. And I think they probably did the cleanest thing, but I would love to talk to somebody who knows nothing about Sonic Adventure 2 and be like, did this work for you? Like, did this work for you at all? So if you haven't seen, or if you haven't played Sonic Adventure 2, but you've seen Sonic the Hedgehog 3, reach out and let me know what you think. Because that would be interesting to me. As again, I'm who this movie was ostensibly made for, but not necessarily in a good way, in a bad way, whatever. It's all fine. It's all fine. So, um, anyway, they go to London. They do a bunch of stupid crap. The gun base is actually the space. I mean, it's not a space colony, but they send it into space. The whole base is sent into space, and or no, not the base. They like actually had the secret weapon like in the river, just hiding there, and that gets shot into space, and they do the Eclipse cannon. And then, there's the Eclipse cannon. It's not Space Colony arc. It's just the whole thing is the Eclipse cannon, and it's in the game. The Eclipse cannon is very powerful, and Eggman demonstrates his power by like blowing up a chunk of the moon, which is funny and like dumb. That whatever. In the game, they're just like, yeah, this thing can just kill everybody. And Gerald's like, yep, I'm gonna kill everyone, and that's fine. Whereas Gerald's motivations in the game, well, I'll get to it. So in the game, also collecting the Chaos Emeralds was important because the Chaos Emeralds powered the Eclipse cannon. Here, that just Shadow can just turn it on by running around in it like a hamster, which is dumb. And Shadow's fine with it. He totally knows what he's doing, and is cool with it. Whereas, like, I like that Eggman's tricked in both the movie and the game, right? In the sense that Eggman is under the impression that it's not going like it's just going to be a gun that he can use to like threaten to control the world. Whereas Eggman in the movie is like, oh, we're not going to use it to rule the world. We're just it blows everyone up. Whereas the twist in the game is that when the cannon is activated for real with all the Chaos Emeralds, which again don't exist in the movie, in the way that we use it, you activate the cannon and then it just crashes. Like the thing just deactivates and just crashes into the planet, which would apparently kill everyone. It's a big asteroid. It's a big thing. I don't know. Like, sure, it'll crash into the planet and kill everybody. That's fine. As like a failsafe, and there's like a video that plays when it's activated of Gerald Robotnik right before he's executed. That like, oh, this is because this is my revenge because I'm crazy, and I like that. And it's a nice trick that Eggman's like, oh shit, and Shadow's like, whatever. But he snaps out of it. He remembers the boss's will, Maria's will, and saves the day with Sonic, which is what happens in basically the same order as the movie. But Gerald Robotnik is like, yep, we're gonna kill everyone. Shadow's like, yeah, that's cool. And then Eggman decides that sucks and is stupid, which is fair. Like it feels lame and out of character. Like I don't know. Eggman as a pathetic loser is kind of funny in the first and the second movie, but here it's just grating, and he's so needy and annoying, and it's the stupid comedy that's not funny to me. To me, maybe some people think it's hilarious. I think it sucks. And it gets in the way of cool Shadow the Hedgehog stuff. Again, I like Gerald being there for revenge, but like it just feels weird that he's still alive, right? Like I'll get into how I would restructure the film after I finish recapping everything. But then while they were in London doing the base, Shadow like seriously injures Tom. It's kind of like, is he dead? Is he not dead? Like they're not going to kill off Tom, but Sonic's pissed. So Sonic like just like tries to kill Shadow, and they fight, and then they chat about things, and then Shadow's a good guy now, and then they go and save the day. Gerald Robotnik gets like killed in a very funny way. I won't spoil it, but that was funny. And then the whole squad works to stop the cannon, and then there's a the laser was firing, but they like the Eclipse cannon was shooting a laser into Earth. It was firing, and Sonic and Shadow like redirect it along with Knuckles and Eggman and Tails on the inside of the base. they redirect the laser so it doesn't blow up Earth. And then like the cannon just like has a meltdown reactor thing. So it's a similar thing where the cannon crashes into Earth in the game, but it just blows up in space. And so Eggman Shadow like pushes it away from Earth using his powers, and Eggman goes down with the ship. So at least at the end of the movie, before any post-credit sequences, you know, Eggman is probably dead unless Jim Carrey decides to unretire and then he's just back again somehow. And then Shadow is also dead, right? Theoretically, but the world is saved. The movie ends. It's fine. You know, in the game, Eggman, basically everybody on the arc lives because the bio. I forgot. I don't know why I was expecting. So Shadow is the ultimate life form. Is like a science experiment, right? Whereas in the movie, he's just an alien. But there was like the precursor to Shadow was just this big gross lizard thing, and the big gross Shadow fights the big gross lizard thing, and then eventually it like fuses with the colony as it's crashing into Earth, and you know, Sonic and Shadow fight it in space, and then Shadow like dies while doing that to help prevent it from crashing into Earth, and everyone lives, right? Except Shadow is dead. Obviously in the games he comes back, and so he's fine, but here, you know, Shadow allegedly dead, although, you know, spoiler, post-credit sequence, he's not dead, and then Eggman is maybe dead or not. And Gerald Robotnik also just instantly insta-killed in a very funny way. So, you know, those are the kind of the plots, and sort of I'm trying to like kind of show some convergences with the game and the movie. Now, how I would do the movie, which again is mostly going to be kind of you know, a one-to-one sort of, not one-to-one. I again, I want it to be more like the game, right? So I think having Team Sonic kind of do some stuff, maybe be on vacation, have Sonic be on vacation, right? For his 1 year anniversary on Earth, whatever, he goes on vacation somewhere, and maybe like, you know, Shadow had just been there and he like stole something. You know, there's a news forecasted like, you know, Shadow is stealing some things. Maybe we bring the Chaos Emeralds back. I think the Chaos Emeralds and the Master Emerald are like the same thing in the Sonic the Hedgehog film franchise, but I think either retconning it or I don't know, but making them basically have separate MacGuffins that Shadow's going around the world trying to get, right? Have him, Sonic, on vacation somewhere, maybe in London. Maybe you're on vacation in London. For some reason. Doesn't really matter what. And then have Sonic be arrested because they think he's Shadow. And then just do that. Then, like, Shadow shows up. You know, Sonic's taken to prison somewhere. Shadow ends up being there also. Like, there's a convoluted, stupid way of doing it. Where then they meet, and they're like, oh, shit. Like, they could do the stupid... you know, the stupid lines from After City Escape. You know what I mean? They could do that. It'd be very funny. I would like it. You know, I'm just saying they could do that, right? That's how I would do that part, because it's like 10 minutes into the movie when Sonic and Shadow like fight each other and just get curb stomped. And I think building up Shadow, you know, and having scenes interspersed throughout the movie where like Shadow is doing his own sort of storyline. And I also think Eggman Eggman teaming up and then betraying the team and then teaming up with the team again, I think is annoying, right? Because he's, you know, Sonic and friends team up with Eggman to figure out what's going on with the egg drones because Gerald Robotnik's in control of them. Because he's alive for some reason. Also, in my version, Gerald's dead the whole time, just like the game, right? Easy. But, you know, Eggman in the film as it is joins up with Sonic, betrays them by teaming up with Gerald, then betrays him again by saying, oh, Gerald's kind of sucks, actually, because he's going to try and kill me, so I'm not going down for that. You know, I think that stinks. I think Eggman should release Shadow himself, just like in the game. you know, because maybe he finds some evidence of the project, he figures out a way to hack the system, gets Shadow out. But like I still like it being done remotely. Like Eggman, let Shadow free. Shadow's like, I'm doing my own thing. And then maybe I think at some point like Eggman tracks down Shadow personally and is like, hey, like, I'm Gerald's grandson. And then Shadow's like, oh, okay, cool. This is what I think we should do. Because maybe I still like the idea of Shadow wanting to do all this. I think Shadow should like try and be like, oh yeah, Eggman, like you should rule the world. He should clock that he's like a villain and just sort of like use him for his tech stuff. And then, basically have the canon be, Shadow's in control of firing that thing. You know what I mean? Until he maybe decides that it's a bad move. But maybe when it's too late, I don't know. But the middle parts of the movie don't really matter. Like currently as they are in the film, they're not funny. So I would love a different set piece of some kind. I'm sure that costs money, right? But I don't know. It's like, where in the game? Like, I think they should add City Escape. I think that should be part of it. I like the part in Tokyo, which is kind of like Shadow's first level, kind of. There should be a jungle level. That's what the middle of the movie should be, is a jungle level. Then they go to the gun base, immediately launch whatever. Have the space colony already be up there, Blow up the moon just like the game, right? Just, don't, in my opinion, waste so much damn time on Jim Carrey. I can't. Gerald being like, I think having Shadow's parallel story and then have it clash with Sonic throughout, right? So you have Sonic talking about friendship and all that, and Shadow just being miserable with flashbacks to his past, and then keeping Gerald in those flashbacks the whole time, and him being like increasingly more unhinged, right? And then I think Shadow kind of being negatively affected by that. Again, it's a kid's movie, so I'm like, yeah, let's keep Gerald Robotnik getting executed by the government, and as his final words are played on video, have that happen. That would be crazy. And again, part of me wanting to do that, even though I know that's obviously not happening in a kid's movie, there's a lot of things in this movie that are changed just so it's like, this is a movie for kids, and that is totally totally fine. But I think there's a how do I want to say this, right? Like, I like Jim Carrey when he's in sort of dramatic roles. I don't think like his comedy's funny. And I think having funny present day Eggman contrasting with like a increasingly deranged Gerald Robotnik would be really cool. And like, I think that would be like a fun, mimic the hero and dark story paths from Sonic Adventure 2, the game, in the movie. I think that would work really well. There's a point in the end of the movie where, Sonic and Shadow team up. They go super mode, live and learn from the game plays, and it's sick as fuck. And then they fucking cut away to Jim Carrey spanking Jim Carrey, and it sucks. And it's such a buzzkill. Like, it truly, that's my least favorite part of the movie. And then it goes back to like the live and learn sequence should have just been uninterrupted the whole time. I hope someone makes an edit of the movie to fix that, because like it's sick as hell. It's so cool. It's a great action sequence. There's a lot of good action sequences in the movie as it is, and they all involve Shadow. And I think that should be part, like, I don't know, like, the best parts of the movie are Shadow. And so I think having Shadow carry half the movie, like, one is very doable, but you have him carry half the movie. Him bouncing off goofy Eggman is probably pretty funny, like he probably, like, having Shadow have like barely being able to hide his contempt for Eggman being like a weirdo maybe just out of respect for Gerald or something would be cool. Having them work together with Agent Stone or assistant, whatever, the assistant guy for Eggman in the films. That would be fine. That's a fine enough team dark. You know what I mean? If we can't have Rouge in there, but we can have Stone. It doesn't make any sense why Gerald's alive, and it's so irritating. But I don't know. Like, I think spacing out stuff before they go to space would be good. Like, I think honestly, this movie really could be longer. I usually am like, hey man, under 2 hours is great, but I think they really just spend too much time on the middle part in the gun base in London, which stinks, and also not like enough. They waste too much time on stupid Jim Carrey stuff, which isn't funny, and they don't like the rest of the movie is so fast paced and like kind of disorienting. Like, I was a little thrown off, and I know the story from the game, right? So like I should be kind of on board. Again, I have no idea if other people in the movie are like, or who are watching the movie, like who haven't played the game. I don't know if they understand what's going on, but I think I think it's fine. I think it's fine, and I don't know. Yeah. The movie's okay. It's fun. There's gonna probably be a fourth one. Amy was teased. Metal Sonic was teased. Spoilers, but I gave that warning many times, so who cares? You're still in it. It's like almost 40 minutes in, so that's on you. The shadow stuff's cool. I don't know what else to say about this movie. It's a movie for kids, and I'm asking for it to be for adults who have played a video game from 20 years ago, who are 30. You know what I mean? That's what I'm asking for. So I understand that is a unrealistic expectation, but I couldn't help but be a little disappointed in the movie. Is it Jeff F's fault? Probably not. There's a lot of care put into the film, especially with the shadow stuff. And again, hearing the Live and Learn sequence, even though it was interrupted, was sick. And Live and Learn's a great song. And Crush 40 is the best band of all time. So I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about Sonic the Hedgehog 3. It's pretty good. It's fine. If you have kids, again, if I would hope no children are listening to this, and I don't want them to reach out to me, but if you're a parent of a child who has seen this movie, or somebody who has not played Sonic Adventure 2, let me know. I'm genuinely curious what your opinion is, because maybe like I'm holding it to a weird standard because I have a frame of reference, but like if you don't have a frame of reference, is it fine? Is it better than how I'm talking about it? I don't know. And I don't know if my changes would really make any sense. Oh, also, maybe I would recast Shadow as with Leo. I think Leo would be a really compelling Shadow, but Keanu Reeves is a close second. Yeah, and two Jim Carreys being both comedic ones at the same time was a bad choice. I didn't like that at all. Sorry, Jim Carrey, but again, I think having the parallel plot lines with the Flash, so you have Sonic, Shadow having parallel plot lines where they clash intermittently. They learn a little bit about each other. Shadow learns what having real friends is like, and that changes his heart for good, which is still basically what the movie is. The themes of trusting your teammates and having a family and making right choices, and how maybe not having friends or not having trust in people might lead you to make bad choices. And the parallels between Sonic and Shadow, like that, that's kind of like the core themes of the movie. And they were communicated fine, I guess, right? Because I'm able to explain them to you, and I didn't have to consult a YouTube essay or anything about it. But yeah, it's fine. I think you could do the same thing with kind of my suggested story structure and more correctly honor the game. And I think give Shadow a little bit more to work with, because he's the best part of the movie, and his fight sequences are dope as fuck. And I hope he comes back. I mean, second post-credit sequence, he is confirmed alive, right? So if they can get Keanu Reeves back, and sure, why not? Why wouldn't they be able to get him back? They got Idris Elba back. They can get Keanu Reeves back. Have Shadow beat up some Metal Sonics, that'd be sick. But those are my kind of closing thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Now to bring it in for some maybe closing thoughts on this year of Bad Boy Cinema, my former co-host, Elliot Film, as we all know, had abandoned ship after a interpersonal conflict. And, to put it in no uncertain terms, he was being a bit of a jerk, and to not just me, and, when called out on it, fled, tried to defend himself, called out on it again, disappeared, disappeared from the show, disappeared from the Discord that we're in. And so I've been the one solely responsible for the back half of the episodes of the year. And of course, I've been really busy with a bunch of stuff, so I dropped the ball there. So I apologize. But, basically the deal is Elliot reached out to me for the only reason of saying that, I have to fund the show myself. It was, he was paying to keep it up. Now it's up to me to do it. And so I just want to, as a closing message of this podcast, please reach out to me at whatever the email that's been posted on here before. I forget what it is. But, if you're really listening to this, you can track me down on Discord. Please reach out to me and just say, hey, I want you to keep doing the show. If you don't, that's fine. I'll stop. It'll be dead. It's gone. Whatever. Who cares? But if you really do want this show, and I do like doing it, I do like watching films and talking about them, and I would love to have more guests. Nobody wants to do it, but I would love to have them. I would love to have a regular co-host, but I was abandoned, but I like doing it. I would just want to make sure that it's not like wasted effort and wasted money, honestly. And I don't need like a million people reaching out and telling me how good I am. I just need somebody to be like, yeah, man, this is worth keeping around. Again, I'm sorry for the absence, but I've been studying. I was coaching soccer. I've been really busy at work, working like weekends and stuff. So a lot of going on for me. So this is like, or traveling, like just a bunch of things that's made it really hard to like do things for fun. Like, I mean, this is fun for me, but like this is like kind of like a hobby that's I do out of obligation at times. You know what I mean? Like you want to do a weekly episodes, like you have to do a weekly episode. You have to make that happen. You can't just do it whenever you want to, although that's what I'm doing with this. But it's different than like, say, oh, I want to watch a show for fun. Like, oh, it's different when you have to watch a movie for a podcast rather than just going to the movies because you want to go to the movies. So anyways, with that all being said, thank you for tuning back into Bad Boy Cinema. I'm sorry it's been so long. Again, please, give me your thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog 3, especially if you have no familiarity with Sonic Adventure 2, the game. And let me know what you think about the show, and if you want it to still be around and exist. So thank you for listening, and I'll maybe see ya or not. Bye bye.